Good morning, explorers. Happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of More to Explore. This is one of my favorite times of year where we can watch brown bears and polar bears at the same time. So let's get to it. My name's Brian Bird, and I'll be your co host today, along with Explore.org's resident naturalist, Mike Fitz. Mike, good afternoon.
Hey, hello to you, Brian, and hello to everybody around the world. I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy for our audience who's along for the ride. If you're new to explore.org, welcome to the community. And of course, welcome back to all of our longtime viewers. We're the world's largest live nature cam network with something like 180 live cameras all over the world. If you have comments, questions for us during the broadcast today, drop those in the chats. Brian and I will be looking for them as we head along. But yeah, Brian, it's it's a neat season because we were focused so heavily on brown bears during like September and the early part of October, but now we can move into the world of polar bears and contrast that with what we've been seeing with brown bears. So we're slowly transitioning from one bear cam to the next during our show today. There's still a lot to say about brown bears in Katmai National Park. Brian, maybe we should get back to the brown bears for a moment. They've been gorging on food in preparation for hibernation, and less than a week ago, we concluded another successful Fat Bear Week.
That's right. And of course, we have our winner, 128 Grazer, with back to back wins. And I believe she's the first mother bear to also win a Fat Bear Week. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. She's the first female bear to win back-to-back Fat Bear Week championships and the first mother bear to win. So Grazer really is a quintessential example of success and survival among brown bears. And in case you are just tuning in, you're like, for the first time, you're like, what the heck is Fat Bear Week? It's a virtual online competition where the public votes for who they think is the fattest, most successful Brooks River Bear of the year. 12 bears made the tournament. They were selected by rangers. And then the candidates got fatter and fatter and fatter as they were voted out, and only two were left, Grazer and Chunk. And this was a rematch of the 2023 finale. In the end, though, the public overwhelmingly chose Grazer over her real life rival in the river.
And thank you everyone who participated. We had over 1 million votes that were casted across Fat Bear Week. And even though Fat Bear Week is a fun competition, it's also a great time to make a big difference for the park with the Otis Fund.
That's very true. Yeah, between October 2 and 13, the Katmai Conservancy hosted its annual fundraiser named the Otis Fund in honor of the longtime beloved Brooks River Bear. Explode.org generously offered to match all donations to the fundraiser as well. So the fundraiser ended yesterday, and I'm happy to report that the public donated more than $360,000
Wow.
to the Otis Fund, which exceeded the Conservancy's fundraising goals. It's more than I expected for sure. With the matching grant, that means we raised about $725,000 for Katmai National Park. And I don't think I can really express how truly amazing that amount of money is. I thank everyone who made a donation. I know there were thousands of people who made donations. A lot of them were very small. Every dollar amount was a worthy donation, though. And I'm a volunteer board member for the Katmai Conservancy, so rest assured, I'll be working hard to make sure that that money is well spent on for the national park and its needs. And the Katmai Conservancy is also perhaps looking to establish an endowment with some of these donations and previous donations from other years, so that the national park always has a reliable source of money to fund important projects.
That's truly, truly amazing. And even though Fat Bear Week and the Otis Fund fundraiser is kind of the unofficial kind of slowdown to uh, brown bear season, but the season's not over yet. So, what does the rest of the year look like for Katmai's brown bears?
Well, most bears in Katmai begin hibernating in November. Pregnant females are usually the first to enter their dens. Large adult males are typically the last to enter hibernation. They may not go into a den until December. Of course, salmon are the reason for the season for bears at Brooks River, the season for the really all summer and fall. The salmon run really doesn't end until late October when the very last of the fish are done spawning. The bears are seeing a rapid decline in spawning activity right now, though. So with fewer fish to feed on, the bears begin to disperse from Brooks River. Some might seek a last foraging opportunity elsewhere, while others are going to make a slow march to their den site. We'll try to keep the webcams at Brooks River online through the rest of the month and perhaps even into November. Weather has the biggest influence on the power supply of the cams at this time of the year. Everything is solar powered right now with a supply of batteries to provide backup, but the solar arrays are relatively small, consisting of just a few panels at most. The days are getting short. There's just a lot less solar energy available now compared to earlier in the year. So if snow and ice especially cover the solar panels, then that will further reduce the amount of power available. Long story short, enjoy the brown bears while you can. We have, I think, maybe at least a couple of more weeks of brown bear watching to do. But remember that their eventual disappearance into the dens means that fat will fuel their survival for their return next spring. And Brian, I know a lot of our audience is excited about the opportunity to continue to watch brown bears at Brooks River. Just looking at the comments on YouTube, a lot of brown bear emojis going on there. So, people, I think, brown bears are certainly our most popular webcam at Brooks River, but we're really excited about some other bears that are roaming North America and being able to share that opportunity with everybody. These bears won't be hibernating, and they are waiting for their opportunity right now to get fat.
Yeah, definitely. Coming over to the other side of North America in Churchill, Manitoba, off the Hudson Bay, we are excited that the polar bear cams are live. And we just had two polar bears sparring live on the Lodge South cam this morning. And here's a couple clips from this season already.
The polar bears are such fantastic animals to watch. It's a little bit different. The viewing experience is a little bit different than what we see with the brown bears at Brooks River, because the bears that we're going to see on the polar bear cams, they're generally not foraging. Polar bears come to the shore of Western Hudson Bay every summer as the sea ice in the bay melts. They'd rather stay on the ice, but sea ice cover across the Arctic is declining over the long term due to climate change. Polar bears are the most carnivorous of all bears. Their preferred prey are seals, and their bodies are well adapted to digest meat and fat from such large prey. Yet without sea ice, polar bears don't have a hunting platform to capture seals. So think about the how powerful the feeling of hunger must be for polar bears right now. Without sea ice, summer and fall are seasons of starvation for polar bears in Hudson Bay. When seasonal sea ice loss forces them onto land, and that's essentially what we're seeing right now, they largely subsist on their fat reserves like a hibernating brown bear. Unlike a hibernating brown bear, though, they don't really ramp down their metabolism. They adjust their activity levels to compensate for a lack of food, although we can see that they can be quite active. You'll see bears sparring and playing with one another. So they're doing a lot of different things on land, but they're losing weight during this time of the year. Uh, Polar bears in summer don't experience the energy saving benefits that brown and black bears experience while they're hibernating. So they're still active, they're still moving around. This means that bears lose a lot of body mass in summer and fall before cold temperatures arrive again and Hudson Bay begins to freeze. This population of polar bears has always experienced summertime ice-free seasons on Hudson Bay. The difference now is that humans are forcing the climate to warm to a place it hasn't been in millions of years. So the duration of the ice-free season is getting longer and longer, which will challenge the ability of bears to endure the ever-increasing season of hunger for them. Well, but it's still an incredible opportunity to watch these bears and provide footage to people all over the world, because Hudson Bay, like Katmai National Park and its brown bears, very remote. It's expensive to get to. To travel there in person, that's not an experience that's available to everybody. But we can do it through the polar bear cams. And we have different perspectives to watch their behavior on the shore of Hudson Bay. Brian, Polar Bears International is our longtime partner for the polar bear cams, and they maintain some amazing technology to bring polar bears to people around the world.
Totally. And I'm a giant nerd for the technology aspect of it. And just to kind of give you a little behind the scenes of what we're actually talking about when we say like the Lodge Cam or Buggy One. So one of the coolest aspects is these buggies that people get to go out and see go polar bear watching. We have one dedicated to the webcams. This is a picture of it. It's like a almost like a 12-foot monster truck. And as you can see on the right hand side in the top corner, that's where our webcam is. Here's kind of another photo of it from the front. And so this goes out into the tundra looking for polar bears that we get to see. And then it's like a 2-ish hours drive down these like tundra roads that the buggy will approach the lodge. And it's like this big train car like structure temporarily out for the season. And so we have a webcam on the south side of this and the north side. So when you're looking at the Explore cams, you'll see the Lodge South and Lodge North cams. And then even further out, we have the Cape cams, which we can see more polar bears, which will be up soon. So it's pretty crazy. And included with all of the polar bear cams, Churchill is also an amazing place to see the Northern Lights, which we also have a camera for, which we've seen some pretty amazing light shows already. Huh, Mike?
Yeah, we have. I wasn't able to see the aurora late last week because it was cloudy in my neighborhood. Brian, were you able to see it? I know Los Angeles is pretty far south, but with these really strong solar storms, people have been seeing the northern lights farther south than than typical.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see them myself, but I was watching on the webcams like this moment that we're seeing here. This is just slightly sped up a little bit, but just the incredible display. One of my favorite uh, angles that we get in the from the Churchill cam is getting directly underneath it, which is just spectacular.
Yeah, that's a perspective that we often don't get in the contiguous United States. So, like, I live in Maine, Brian, in the Los Angeles area. So, we're often looking to the north to see, the northern lights on the far northern horizon if we have that opportunity. But you get to these areas that are even farther north at high latitudes, like in Fairbanks or like in Churchill, the aurora can just be right overhead. So just amazing displays. Uh, NASA last week, NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that the sun emitted an X-class solar flare on October 9. And X-class is the most intense types of solar flares. So these situations, they pose a risk to satellites and GPS and other communications technology, but we should really be thankful for our planet's magnetosphere and atmosphere, because without them, our planet would be much less habitable. These types of events, these solar flares, they eject so much space weather and so much radiation into space that it would bombard Earth's surface with harmful radiation. Instead, we get to enjoy their beauty, whether that's in person or across our webcams. And the auroras are really just some of the most ethereal, I think, natural phenomenon that you can witness. And I want to thank our partners, Polar Bears International and the University of Alaska Fairbanks, for the opportunity to share the Northern Lights with people around the world.
Yeah, and one of another part that I enjoy, I guess this time we got to see the red hues of it, which extra oxygen bouncing around in the highest parts of the atmosphere. It's very special to see. And Mike, before we conclude today, we also want to recognize that it is Indigenous Peoples Day today.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and that's not a, it's. I learned actually. I was looking up the particulars of what we consider to be Indigenous Peoples Day in the United States, and it's not a federal holiday today, but more and more states are recognizing it as a holiday, including my home state of Maine. And all of North America was peopled when Europeans arrived. So we mustn't lose sight of that fact when we consider the full implications of national parks and other protected landscapes. So we have these amazing, beautiful scenes from Katmai National Park and our brown bears. And some of Exploded Works' most popular webcams are located in national parks. Uh, but if you take a step back and think about the formation of national parks, in a sense, they are products of colonialism. So the US government warred with Native Americans across the continent to advance settlement. Parks were then carved out of public domain that was formerly indigenous territory. And then rather than allowing indigenous people to remain part of the landscape and ecology of parks, early park managers chose to emphasize that people should minimally interfere with nature in parks. This wasn't a fully realized goal even then or now, however. because in the past, park managers fed bears as sideshows. They hunted wolves to allow elk populations to grow. They spread insecticides to prevent outbreaks of native insect species. They built roads and infrastructure that facilitated public access, but fragmented and altered different habitats. This was a cultural choice of control that failed to acknowledge the full history of people in park landscapes. Even in Katmai, long before it officially became a national park, the Brooks River area was made part of the national monument at the same time that Indigenous people continued to use Brooks River to harvest salmon. Those practices were only marginally tolerated by the National Park Service and Lodge afterward, after the national monument expanded into the Brooks River area. Nothing in federal law at the time allowed that activity within the national monument. So people were trying to basically just make a living in the way that they had always done, but it wasn't permitted in the park. Today, congressional law allows descendants of Katmai residents to harvest salmon at the outlet of Brooks River, and the National Park Service restricts views of the river mouth in October to provide greater privacy if Katmai descendants chose to gather fish there. I want to be very clear to people, though. This doesn't mean that people are out there gathering fish all the time, or even, anytime at all, maybe in October. Sometimes it may not happen, but their right to do so exists. So that's why we don't show the river mouth in the month of October. The idea of national parks and what they represent will continue to evolve. And it's evolved certainly in my mind compared to when I first worked as a ranger way back in the early aughts, if I'm going to date myself. But they provide us with many different perspectives to think about what national parks mean. And so in contrast to the celebrated conservation success stories, which national parks certainly are, there's a different perspective that I think we should consider, especially on a day like today. Our parks have very different long-lasting consequences for people who still consider those lands home. So that's just an Indigenous Peoples Days message that I wanted to share with everybody.
Thank you. Well said, Mike. And coming up, more live events this week, like this show that you're watching now. We have the Africam show on the other side of the world. If you feel like going on a virtual live safari, check that out tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. And then on Thursday, we have our Wild Moment show, same time, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, if you want to see all the best highlights from the Africam cameras. And if you're not already to see some of the best clips that we have on Explorador, please subscribe to your favorite social media platform, including our main YouTube channel, which is Explore Live Nature Cams. And Mike, other than subscribing to us on social media, how else can people get involved with Explore.org?
Of course, yeah. If you want to volunteer, there's a lot of magic that happens through our volunteers, either our camera operators or our website moderators or comment moderators. So you can go to explore.org/volunteer, fill out the form there. We'll get back to you, even if you just have, you think, a couple hours a week. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have a couple hours to spare and want to contribute in a different way to our community, then go to explore.org/volunteer. Oh, and Brian, I should mention one thing too. I kind of forgot that we do have at least one more Bear Cam play-by-play scheduled. That's for tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So you can join Naomi Boak with the Katmai Conservancy and myself for that play-by-play. We'll be over on the Brooks live chat channel, so you won't find it directly on this channel.
Definitely thank you for that. And that is our show today. So thank you for joining us today. And I want to give another special thank you to our moderators and camera operators, and of course, my co-host, Mike Fitz. Enjoy all the cams on Explore.org, and especially brown bears, polar bears, and the northern lights. And join us again for another episode of More to Explore on October 28th. And until then, happy exploring.